Let's talk about DevTools. Interesting, right? So DevTools is a mechanism provided by every single modern web browser to help debugging existing code and even further to create new code from scratch. So we'll see few things about DevTools. I think it's fair to say that DevTools is a huge wall. You can do so many things with DevTools. We can analyze performance, we can audit your app. It's insane how many things you can do with DevTools, right? I particularly like Chrome DevTools. I think they are it's extremely powerful mechanism to debug your app. And you will see in the long term that you'll be spending so much time with DevTools because that's clearly the most efficient way to debug your app. Before going into any details about DevTools, I would like to start creating a snippet. Why? Because for you at the very beginning, that would be very helpful. Think about the board challenge, right? In the board challenge, you have a basic function in JavaScript. So the best way to understand what a function does is to type it and play with it, right? So you can do that with DevTools. I'll show you how to do it. So every time you want to work with DevTools, unless you want to debug an existing app, but if the only thing you want to do is to create a basic snippet, a basic function in JavaScript, my suggestion is create a new tab in Google Chrome. And once you have the empty tab, do right-click, inspect. There is a shortcut, I think it's F12 or something like that, right? But yes, correct. Yes. Sorry, say it again, Richard?
I don't see your...
You don't see the desktop, sorry. Let me share the screen again. Cool. Let me know if you have any other issue, Richard. Right, so again, open a new tab. We all open a new tab in Google Chrome, right-click, inspect. So by default, you'll get a window like this one. And as part of that window, we'll be able to do a few things. The position of the window may change, right? So at the moment, my window is on the right-hand side, but if it's the first time you open DevTools, it may be at the bottom. You can change the position of the DevTools. You click on the three dots on the right-hand side, right? And then you can move the position anywhere, right? That's up to you, whatever works better. I tend to put it on the right, but yes, that's something very personal. So the important thing, how do we create a snippet? You will see a few tabs on top. And the one we're looking for is sources. That it may be the second one or not, because you can even rearrange. If you drag and drop, you can rearrange tabs, right? So it doesn't matter the order. Just click on sources. And then once you've clicked in sources, you may see here, you may get something like that on the left-hand side. So it's important to find the snippets, which is not that obvious how to find the snippets. If you click on the right arrow, it's a bit hidden, right? You see, on this arrow, you'll find the snippets, right? So then we can create a new snippet. A snippet is just essentially JavaScript code, right? So how can we create a new snippet? Just click on new snippet. You can even give a name to it because you can have multiple snippets. So this is going to be, yep.
Can you just go back just a second to the snippets, please?
Sources, correct. Then click here on the arrow. Yeah, and then you'll find snippets, correct?
Yeah.
Cool, nice. So then you create a new snippet, and you can change the name of the snippet. You follow me? Cool, nice, cheers. So once you create a snippet, obviously you can change the size of the window and all these things, right? Generally speaking, I minimize the snippet. Unless you want to swap between multiple snippets, there is no point of leaving that panel open, so you can collapse it. You click on that button, hide navigator, right? So then you get more space, right? Before doing any coding, there is a trick that you should know. Every time you create a snippet, and we'll learn later on why, not today, but just take that as a rule of thumb for now, you should open and close curly brackets. That's the only rule. You open and close curly brackets, and then you can start creating amazing JavaScript code. For instance, I'm going to create a basic function to return welcome to the bootcamp. So I can just type JavaScript, right? So I can type function welcome. How do we create a function in JavaScript? What else do we need here? Parentheses, correct. And then what else? Curly braces, correct. Right? So then here we can return welcome to the bootcamp. Right? And then how do we invoke the function?
Welcome.
Correct. Welcome, and then what? Parentheses. Do we need a parentheses? Yes, no? So Itamar thinks we don't need them. What happens if we don't put them? If we don't add the parentheses, we are not invoking the function. Right? So we definitely, if we want to execute the function, and that's a classic issue on the beginner level, we need to put the parentheses. So always put the parentheses in place if you want to invoke the function. So once we have a simple function and we invoke the function, then we can execute the snippet. How do we execute the snippet? Look here, run snippet. Right? On the right-hand side, you have a button, run a snippet. Right? If you click in that button, you will see at the bottom the output, because we are calling a function that returns welcome to the bootcamp. The output is literally a string with welcome to the bootcamp. Does it make sense? Right? So this is the most fundamental way to create and to play with JavaScript. So whenever you want to deal with a board challenge, my suggestion is literally copy and paste it, right? That will help you to understand what's going on. Any questions so far? Yep.
How to get rid of, I have a lot of stuff, a lot of text before welcome to bootcamp.
Yes, correct. So the thing is, the first thing I mentioned before is open DevTools on an empty tab. Yeah. Open a new tab and then inspect. If you don't do that, so for example, if I open my Codeflix application and I open DevTools, it may have some console log messages coming from the website, right? And we don't want that. We don't want that noise, right? So open in a new tab. Even if in that case, even if you open an empty tab, you can have some noisy messages because of your extensions, because of all these things, right? So something that's wrong. That's because, you know. So you can open an incognito tab, right? So an incognito tab hopefully will get rid of all the extensions, or most of them at least. And even if that doesn't help, you can filter the messages. So at the bottom, so for example, if you get errors, you know, you can uncheck and tick the errors messages. So for example, I just want to show the info messages, right? Any other question?
So why is the whole thing wrapped in that?
Yes, that's about scoping, Richard. We'll learn the differences between var, let, and const. That's the reason, scoping. And we'll obviously analyze why is that. But for now, because I don't want to give too much information, just remember to surround everything with brackets. If you don't put the brackets, you may have problems to run the snippet multiple times. If you put the brackets, every time you run the snippet, it will create a new context. So it will be like a new instance of your code. Right? So you can click, you see, I can click multiple times. I can run the snippet multiple times. And because you'll be running that multiple times, Chrome is smart enough to suggest the shortcuts, which we'll be using a lot. I think in Windows is Control-Enter, in Mac is Command Enter. So if I press Command Enter, you see the snippet gets executed.
Only because you started off with the curly braces.
Uh,
If you didn't have the curly braces, you're saying
so if you don't have the curly braces,
yeah.
not all the time, but in some cases that may fail. Now it works, but as soon as the example becomes more complicated, as soon as I start creating variables, it will fail, right? So and we'll learn why in the future. But for now, because I don't want to give too much information on the first day, just keep the brackets at the beginning and close them at the end. That's it.
Ricardo, every time you create new function, you have to put new brackets or
No. Just open a bracket at the beginning and close it at the end. That's it.
for all?
For everything. Yeah. Just once, right? Just once. Because that will create a new context. So you need to do that just once. If you create a new snippet, right, then do it again. But for the same snippet, do it just once, right? Obviously, as soon as you start typing, you see that asterisk. You know what the asterisk means, right? You see? Unsave, correct. So remember, once you change something, to save it, Control S, Window, Command S, Mac. Because if you save it, you can switch off the computer and tomorrow the snippet will be there, which could be convenient, right?
These, if you get rid of cookies, etc.
It's still there. No, you don't lose that. No. You don't lose that. You don't lose the snippet. You lose the snippet if you change the laptop, but yeah. Cool. Let's add some spices to the example. How do I say it? Welcome to the bootcamp, Rafa?
So you would add name in the bracket.
Here, up here, what we put here?
Name.
Name. And then what?
I would do backticks.
Backticks?
Yeah.
Right? Let's do backticks. Do you remember backticks? We learned them yesterday, right?
Yes.
And then what?
$sign.
$sign.
Yeah.
And then what?
Curly
Curly braces. Name. Right. So what will this return?
the name of the person.
Yeah, correct. So can you tell me exactly what will this snippet return? So Rafa, nothing. Wrong. Ashley, nothing.
It's gonna return welcome to the bootcamp. That's it.
Wrong. Right. Ashley. Wrong.
Is it welcome to the boot camp, $sign, bracket, name, bracket?
Oh yeah.
So I can message.
So, right. So Poppy said, "Welcome to the boot camp." Like that?
Well, yeah, just as a string. It'd be like if it was a string. And the name in the middle as well. 'Cause that's
Name. Like that?
Yeah.
Wrong. Michael.
Just welcome to the boot camp.
Just welcome to the boot camp. Wrong. Richard.
Welcome to the boot camp! Exclamation space.
And then what? That's it? Wrong. Right. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, but that happened once. I think everybody's wrong, and I was wrong, right? In that case, you'll get extra points on the board challenge, right? So that's why I want you to participate, because you can get extra points. This is the way you participate, right? So we got Munawar.
I think it's a runtime error.
Runtime error. That's very aggressive, right? But that's runtime error. No, but hey, listen, makes sense. But wrong. Right. So wait a minute. I see nothing here already, right? So Rafa, Ashley, Itamar.
Alright, I don't know what the name of it would be exactly, but I think it would return as undefined, where it would say name has not been used in the function.
So error as well.
Yeah, undefined or something.
Undefined.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Welcome to the bootcamp. $sign name
Wrong. Daniel?
Welcome to bootcamp and undefined.
Welcome to the bootcamp
And
undefined.
undefined. Because the name is not defined.
So that's correct. So Daniel gets the first points on the board challenge, right?
You have to put the name and where you
Correct.
You hold the function.
Correct. So name, what's the value of name? Undefined. Well, it's undefined, not as a string. When we concatenate strings and undefined, it will say, welcome to the bootcamp undefined. Let's test that. Let's see if that's correct. Here we go. You see? Welcome to the bootcamp undefined, which is what Daniel proposed. Yes, so that's correct. So how do we fix that? How do we put welcome to the bootcamp Daniel?
On the, what do we call the function?
Yep.
Yeah, we come up with the name.
Daniel. That's correct?
Yeah.
Yes, no, yes, no, why?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. So Munawar is correct. This won't work because Daniel is expected to be a variable. You see, Daniel is not defined, right? So we should surround it with, single or double quotes, right? And that works. So this is just an example to prove how to deal with DevTools. Something particularly important about DevTools is the debugging capabilities. So let's change the example. So I'm going to create a function called sum, and sum will take two variables, 2 and 3, and then I'm going to create a variable result. It takes value 1 and value 2. Result is value 1 minus value 2, and then we return the result is result. So will this work? What will this return? 5. The result is 5. Right. Correct. So we want the result to be 5, right? Because we want to have a function that adds the top values. But if we run it, if we run that example, hey, wait a minute. The result of adding 2 and 3 is not 5, right? That's a classic problem. We invoke a function, and the function doesn't give us what we want. So, fortunately, in 2019, well, that was supported 10 years ago. It's nothing new, right? But we can add breakpoints. So a breakpoint is a way to stop the execution at any line to inspect and to debug the value of the variables. So you can simply click on any line, not on every line, but in some sensitive lines, you can click on the line, right? And you will see that it adds a green thing on the left hand, a green box on the left hand side, right? So what that means? That means that as soon as we execute the snippet, as soon as we run the code again, you see, it will run on that, it will stop on that line. This is extremely useful. You should be using that mechanism all the time. Why? Because now, as I've stopped the execution in the middle of the script, you remember we mentioned that yesterday, why creating variables was useful instead of inlining everything. Now I can inspect the values of the variables. Look, you see? Value 1, 2, value 2, 3. That's correct, right? That's correct. But then result minus 1. What? That's not correct. Result shouldn't be minus 1. Result should be 2 plus 3, 5. So then I know that the problem is on this line. We are dividing and conquering, right? Yeah, and then, okay, the problem is on that line. What's the problem? Value 1? Oh, wait a minute. We shouldn't subtract the value. We should add them, right? Because we should add them, we can change that.
How did you get the green line? Sorry, how did you get that?
Just click on the line. Yeah. Click on the line number.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Yes, correct. So that was the next thing. Let me finish that. So two things. First of all, if you are in the middle, so Chrome, because of a reason, massively fails handling breakpoints. It works fine sometimes, but it doesn't work fine sometimes, right? It's a big issue. To me, that's the major issue with Chrome today. So, first of all, to how can we minimize, how can we help Chrome to stabilize? First of all, if you are running a snippet, first of all, finish the execution before doing any other change. So you see that at the moment, the snippet is running. If I run it again, we'll have issues. Chrome will struggle. So you may notice that we have some buttons that they could be on the right-hand side or at the bottom, depending on your resolution. So you will see that whenever you stop the execution, one of them, the resume one, will become blue. So you can click on it, and then it will finish. It will continue, right?
So, Ricardo, sorry,
Yep.
I'm going to have to ask a very silly question. Why is that wrong? Because you said it's wrong, right?
Yep.
Because you just stick to a different result.
Correct.
But you've got value 1 minus value 2.
Yeah, but I don't want to have value 1 minus value 2. I want to have value 1 plus value 2. Because
the bit underneath, because of the function.
no, because if you create a function called sum that adds 2 values,
Oh, I see.
I expect the function to return 5, not minus 1.
You just made the mistake. Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah, we can rename it to add if you want. Something like that, right? I mean, this is just a silly example, just to prove how to stop execution, right? So after, no problem. So once we've done that, we can change minus with plus. So then if we run the snippet again, now it returns 5, right? So that's the way you debug stuff with JavaScript. Some of you said that you cannot add the breakpoints, right? So you should all be able to add a breakpoint on the return statement here as well.
I was doing it in a blank line.
Yeah, in a blank line, you cannot look. If I try to add a breakpoint line number 6, it doesn't allow me, you see? Because there is nothing. You cannot stop the execution on a blank line. I cannot add a breakpoint line number 2. I cannot add a breakpoint line number 1. So that's the thing. So we can just add breakpoints where we do something, right? Not on blank lines, not on the curly brackets. There are some rules, right? So then let me ask you something, and we'll be doing that in many workshops, in all the board challenge reviews at least. So can you tell me the execution order? So I've added 2 breakpoints. So can you tell me the order of these breakpoints? So, for example, Megan. 3 and 4. Is that correct?
It's a trick question.
No, that's correct. That wasn't a tricky question. Yeah. Why 3 and 4? Because it will stop on line number 3. Let's try that. Right? And then if we continue with the execution, it will stop on line number 4, and that's it. Correct? And what happens if I add a new breakpoint on line number 7? So, Esli. Oops.
7, 3, 4.
7, 3, 4. Is that correct or not? Any other? 3, 4, 7. So Jonan and Ashley. 3, 4, 7. Who is right? Ooh.
I think 7, because 7.
So Ashley and Mo, right? It's 2 versus 2.
No, I'm back up. I'm changing.
You are, oh, Ashley, you're alone now, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So, Ashley, what do you think? Do you resist? Do you give up? So let's have a look. So this function will never be executed unless we invoke it. So line number 7 will definitely happen before. If we don't run line number 7, right? So can you tell me now the execution order? Seven, wait a minute. Rafa said 7, 3, 4. There is nothing on line 7. So that was a bit optimistic, right? That's a
I didn't see that you were
right.
3, 4.
3, 4, right? Yeah, 3, 4. Rafa and Jonan, 3, 4. Richard, any feedback?
Yeah,
3,
3, 4.
4.
She's got the answer in the back.
Right. What do you think? No. Michael? Nothing. Interesting. Why nothing, Michael? Right. Correct. Michael is right. Why? Line number 3 will never be executed. No one is invoking the add function, right? I mean, let's try that. Right? You see? I'm executing, but it never stops anywhere, right? You can create a function, kill them all. But if we don't invoke the function, it's pointless. It will be ignored, right?
Can we say it's the curly brackets are the important, like it starts with the widest curly brackets?
No, that's completely irrelevant. So ignore
Is it?
the curly brackets, the main ones, you mean?
Yeah.
No. So ignore that. Just put them. They don't have any impact, any effect on what's going on, right? So just focus, please, on these 3 lines. And within these 3 lines, 4 lines, no one is invoking the add function. Because of that, this code will never run. You can do illegal things here. Right? That's fine. This will never be executed, right? So no breakpoints. So that's a point for Michael and another one for Daniel. So then, back to the example. If I invoke add 2 and 3, so that was the previous question, right? Yeah. So we were discussing if that will return, if the execution order will be 7, 3, 4 or 3, 4, 7. Any other?
7, 4, 3.
7, 4, 3. That's risky, right? 7, 4, 3. Wait a minute. So why 7, 4, 3? Ashley.
Oh, actually, no. Because when you execute it,
Yeah.
it will show as the result is the sum.
Fair enough. But why 4 will run before 3?
Actually, 3 will. Sorry, I go back on my
7, 3, 4.
7, 3, 4.
Okay, so that's pretty much what everyone else said, right?
7, 3, 4.
Is there any alternative opinion, or do you all agree that the execution order will be 7, 3, 4?
It could just go to 7 and stop.
Well, 7 won't complete until.
So
3 and 4.
correct. So the breakpoint stops before the line is executed. Before. So based on that, that's correct. So it will first go to line number 7, and then it will say, okay, I need to invoke a function called add. What is the function? It's here, no problem at all. Go to line number 3, and eventually go to line number 4. Let's try that. Well, that's wrong. I missed the breakpoint. Sorry. Let me finish that. Yeah. So let me try to add a breakpoint. You see, now I can't add a breakpoint anymore. This is what I was mentioning before. So now Chrome is, you see? That's wrong. That doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah. So generally speaking, either you create a new snippet or you have to kill Chrome. Not ideal. Definitely not ideal, right?
The pause play thing. Pause play button.
Yeah, but there's nothing running at the moment. So.
We're doing it on Google Chrome. We can't do it in other things.
Say it again?
It's only in Google Chrome.
As far as I know, yes. Yes, try with a different browser, and if it works better, let me know, because I'm interested, you know, seriously. Right, so I copy the snippet, and now it looks like it works fine, right? Yeah, not ideal. Anyway, let's see if it's 734. 7, well, 8, I move it one line below, but that's the same, right? 8, and then 3, and then 4. That's correct, right? Let's try again. So 7, 3, 4. That's correct, right? That's correct. Any question?
What if you were to put add 2, 3 in line 2?
Add 2, 3 in line 2. Okay.
Above before
Okay.
you define the function.
Okay. So you want to do that, right? Will this work? No. Why not?
We'll get there at the end of
Because
time.
it reads by line by line. You're invoking something.
Yep.
You don't have it. So
Yep. Okay. So I think you are wrong, Rafa. That should work.
Really?
It won't work.
Right? Wait a minute. Yeah, that's a bit confusing. We'll talk about all these things. I don't want to talk about that now. But this is something called, in JavaScript, if you're curious, hoisting. If you're curious about what happens when you move things up and down, there is a technique called hoisting, which I'm not going to explain now, right? So I don't want to make this more complicated. Yeah, sorry about that, Rafa. So the last example, this is going to be super sexy. So because we got a basic understanding about breakpoints and execution order and all these things, I'm going to create a new snippet. And the snippet is going to be get expensive fruit. Is that any familiar with you? Right. So do you remember that? So let's create, so for example, name apple, price 1.99, name banana, price 2.31, and then name pineapple, price 3.1, something like that, right? So now, can you let's do that together, guys. So we'll pass the threshold. So we're going to find a fruit above that price. So you'll tell me, how do we do that? Return fruits dot find fruit arrow function fruit dot price what? Greater than, equal than what? That price. Correct. That should work, right? That should work. So that should return what?
It should return banana as object.
Banana as a string. So Mo said banana. Banana and pineapple. So wait a minute. So Mo said banana. So then Poppy and Ashley said banana and pineapple. Who else? Itamar.
I think it should return only banana, but as the actual object. So the whole entire object. Like that.
Why? Or
Because you haven't asked it specifically to return you one of the. So you haven't asked it to return the name or the price. You just asked to return
Yeah.
the.
Exactly. You'll return that.
yeah.
Yeah, my one's
There is
wrong.
no name.
There is no name. That's so Itamar is right. And I love your headsets. It looks like you come from the future. Yeah, sorry about the off topic. So before I forgot, so Itamar Daniel and Michael will get points. Right, so Itamar is correct, right? Find. How many elements find will return? One. So so Poppy and Ashley. So that doesn't make any sense. Never, never, ever, never, ever. And then Mo, he was close, right? Because he's right, he will return one element, but the problem he had is he thought that will return a string. Why a string? There is no string here, right? So we have a list of objects. So we'll return the first object matching the condition. How can we return the name of the fruit?
Name.
Correct. If we put, well, let's see if that works, first of all. That works, that's correct. And if we put .name, then we just return the name of the fruit, right? So I'm going to change this snippet a bit. Imagine that we are not sure why this is happening and we don't have a clear picture about the flow. So I'm going to transform this arrow function into a classic function. And to do that, I will eventually add a breakpoint. So will this work? Yeah, that's the same, right? So that should work, hopefully. Here you go, no problem at all. So now, look at what I'm doing. Now you will tell me the execution order. So, Munawar. Eight, 3, 4. Wrong. Jonan. So numbers, please. 3. Wrong.
3, 4, 7.
Too late. So we got Michael.
Right, so can I just be clear? You put breakpoints in there.
Yep.
And you're trying to do what?
I will execute that snippet, and I want to predict how many times it will stop on each breakpoint. The order of the breakpoints, essentially. How many times we'll get the green bar surrounding a specific line? Eight, 3, 4. It's not. It's not perfect. That's not perfect. Oh, that thing, right? That thing. So, Aisel.
8, 4,
8, 4, 3. Why not, right? No, that's wrong. Any glue, Michael?
Yeah, sorry. So why is this top to bottom? I'm going to say 3, 4, 8.
3, 4, 8. That's wrong. So then Itamar. Wait a minute. Itamar and then Richard.
I think it's 3 and then 4.
3 and then 4. Wrong. So then Richard. 8. That's it? Yeah. No. That's wrong. Rafa? Ashley? Megan? 8, 3? 8, 3, 4, 4, 4. 8, 3, 4, 4, 4. Can I play a video about how do I feel after watching your solution? Sorry, that's a bit off topic. Oh, wait. So, Megan is playing Chun-Li.
Which one's Megan?
Female.
Yeah. The female.
So that's Megan 834. It's clearly she got it right. She's just about to get it. She's clearly going to get it right. She'll get the points, but something goes wrong. Right. So she was super close. Right? Can anyone detect or smell
Okay.
why Megan was super close to get the solution, but Itamar?
Because it would stop at the second 4 because it already found what it was looking for.
That's correct. You got that, Megan? So find. So first of all, so why Munawar was close actually. So and Munawar was sorry guys, I need to charge now. So Munawar was close because the order is correct. 8, 3, 4, right? That's correct. 8 and then 3 and then 4. However, this is a callback function. So that may run few times. It will stop once it matches the condition, right? So the problem with Megan is she thought that it will run until the end. But that's not true, because on the second element, the condition will be matched, so then it will abort the execution, right? Let's prove if the theory is correct or not. Line number 8, correct. Then it will stop on line number 3 and then on line number 4. So the first fruit is the apple, fair enough. Will the condition be truthy or falsy? Falsy, correct. Let's go on. Again, line number 4, banana. Will the condition be truthy or falsy? Truthy, correct, because fruit of price 2.31 is greater or equal than 2. Right? So that's correct. And then, now that's the thing. Because now the condition is met, it will never go back to the callback function. It will exit. It will stop, right? So then, that's it. 8, 3, 4, 4. Right?
So it won't execute pineapple.
No. It won't execute pineapple, correct. No, not at all. Not at all.
Ricardo?
Yep.
Sorry, but the callback functions is actually on line 3, where you've got function parameters. So why is it, how can it run the return value when it doesn't pass in the second value from the array?
I'm not sure if I got the question, Richard.
Right, so each time the callback function runs, you're passing in a new element to the array.
Yes?
Okay, so how can 4 run twice without line 3 where it says function?
No, because line 3, on line number 3, we are just declaring the callback function. On line number 4, we are executing the callback function multiple times.
But is it fair to say, like I can get Richard's thing if you're saying it would be 8, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. No, because line number 3 will run just once. Because here we declare the function, we don't execute anything. Where we execute the callback function is here, on line number 4. So here we just declare it. We declare the callback function just once. We have that thing just once, right? But then the content of the function will run several times, right? Any other question? Does it make sense?
So that's because it's an anonymous function.
It's a no. That's not no. Even if it's not an anonymous function, Richard. So if we call it, we can name that function, right? That's a good point. We can call, even if we call the function, that's the same thing. We declare the function once. So if we run this snippet again, it will run 8, then 3, and then 4, and then 4, and that's it, right? So it's not because it's an anonymous function, it's because it's a callback function. So the find method will decide how many times this function is executed. right? On Friday, we'll talk about the differences between find and filter. So we'll run the same example again.
Yeah, I was wondering actually.
Yep.
The difference.
Yep, we'll learn that on Friday. Any other question?
Ricardo, if we assign a variable to
Yep.
that get expensive fruit call,
Yep.
where presumably the variable will be undefined.
So you want to send that to a variable?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that. Let expensive fruit, something like that?
Yeah.
And then what?
When you hit the breakpoint, that's going to be undefined.
Yes, of course, yes. So if we hit a breakpoint here, let's do that. If we hit the breakpoint on line number 8, expensive fruit is still undefined because, as I said, the breakpoint stops before the line is executed, right?
Would you be able to fix that by adding underneath expensive fruit?
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. If we, let me try to kill that off. Yeah. Right. So if we underneath display expensive fruit, right? So now it should stop. What go first, 8 or 14? 14 before 8. Why?
But you haven't invoked.
Because you call the function, but you don't say when. You have to put the parent.
You haven't called any.
You need to put the things after
After the what?
expensive.
14 and 8.
So okay, let's do something. So Mo, Daniel, Jonan,
It's wrong.
is 14 and 8.
No, it's 14, let's say it.
Or nothing.
Nothing. So Jonan now he says that nothing. Poppy?
8 and 14.
Can you convince each other? Can you argue why 8 and then 14?
I think 8 and 14 because that's where you invoke the function.
Yes.
So
Correct. So Poppy is right. So essentially, JavaScript is generally speaking read from top to bottom, right? So line number 8 will always happen before line number 14, right? This case is exceptional. When we have callback functions, they run differently. But unless we have a inner nested function in this case, it will always be read from top to bottom. So it will run line number 8, and then if we continue with the execution, it will stop. Well, it will go 3 or 4, of course, and eventually it will display the line number 14. Right? So I know at the beginning this is a bit confusing, but my suggestion is add some basic functions, add some breakpoints, and try to understand why, try to predict, try to figure out the execution order, right? And if you struggle, then let me know and we can review that together.
So did adding line 14
Yep.
help this?
No, it didn't help anything.
Didn't do anything.
No, it didn't do anything. It's just displaying the expensive fruit. It was just an example, right? It's like if I put a console log here, just to prove the execution order, right? So now that's the same thing. It will stop on line number 8, and then eventually it will stop on line number 15. That's the same thing. 8, and then 3, 4 again, and eventually 15.
Okay, but
You can't do copy pasting snippets, can you?
You can copy paste, of course, the content.
Yeah.
So you need to select everything.
Or maybe I should save first? No.
No, you select everything, then you copy everything, and then you,
I copied it, but I can't paste.
I'm sure you can paste. I'm sure you can paste. Look,
There is no.
there is no paste button, but if you do Control V or Command V, it works. Yeah.
but so we kind of just
Yep.
on that, if you get rid of
Yep.
line 14 and 15,
Yep.
delete them,
Yep.
so can you run it?
Yes. 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 Let me run that. Yes. It runs. Yeah.
It runs.
Yeah. It doesn't return anything, because we created a variable. We don't do anything with the variable.
Adding the variable.
Yes, yes, correct. So when you create a snippet, if you type a variable like that, it will be displayed in the console, right? So you want to evaluate the value of expensive fruit, you run that, and then it will display the expensive fruit. Okay. If you don't put anything at the end of the snippet, it will return nothing. Look, well, the function declaration, but that's pretty much the same as nothing, right? So, any question?
Yeah, Ricardo.
Yep.
Whilst this is great, you have said
Yep.
that there's a flaw,
Yep.
it's buggy, the debugger.
Yep.
Is there no other decent debugger for JavaScript?
So there is, yes, with Visual Studio.
Okay.
So you can integrate Visual Studio to debug Google Chrome's code, right? Yes, you can. I mean, I don't have that configured at the moment, so I cannot show you. But essentially, you can do the same thing. So this is Visual Studio, so you can. No, I don't have this configured at the moment. Well, yes, you can add some breakpoints, and it will stop here. It's pretty much the same thing. Right? It's something that it may worth to analyze to see if it gets any better than that tool. Any question? So the very last thing is, I mentioned before that even though DevTools is a huge wall, we'll revisit some of the functionalities in the future. But there is another piece of functionality that is particularly important in my opinion. So if you're working with Codeflix, this is what you'll get shortly, right? So you'll have a list of TV shows, and then you click on a TV show, and then you'll have a menu. So this is what you're building at the moment. So essentially, sometimes things don't work as you expect, right? And that's normal. Because of that, please, starting from today, keep DevTools open all the time. Because if there is any problem, if there is any warning, anything, it will be much easier to debug and to fix with DevTools open. It's the same process, right? Click, inspect, right? And then we can play with different things in DevTools. So first of all, the first panel is the elements. So elements is very useful, you see, to highlight parts of the UI, right? This is really good because, for example, I can come to the image, I can delete it, so I can play with the code a bit, right? As soon as I refresh the changes, they will be back, right? But for testing purposes, or for example, I can change the styles. So for example, if I delete the first image, I can change the background. We learn all these things. So if you click on the first button here, select an element in the page to inspect it, and then you click on the target element. So hopefully here we can change some properties. So for example, we can change the background color. All these things, right? So we can do some live changes. Then we can disable. Again, as soon as you refresh, they are gone. But for debugging purposes, it's very useful. And one more thing. In the sources, and you'll see that shortly, we've been playing with snippets. But on top of the snippets, we can debug React code. So if we go to page, we can open, so for instance, you are playing with app.js, right? In app.js is where you are creating, you've added the image, and where you are creating a layout and things like that. So if we search, you see this is the structure of your project. So we can navigate until we find our file, app.js. So, and this is the file that you get in Visual Studio. It's the same file. It's different to yours, right? Because you haven't done all these things. But eventually it will be the same file. If you struggle to find the file, you can open it in Windows with Control-P, in Mac with Alt-P. Then you type the name of the file, app.js. Right. Why this is convenient? Because, as you can figure out, we can add breakpoints. We'll do a specific session to learn how to add breakpoints in React. But for now, just bear in mind that we can add breakpoints, right? And these breakpoints will be triggered. So if I refresh the page, you see? Oh, wow. It stops on the breakpoints. So we can debug variables and we can see what's going on under the hood, right? So this is very, very powerful. Right? So we'll do a specific session, as I said, to understand React flow and breakpoints and all these things, right? But bear in mind that we can do that as well.
Like one cool thing, can we change it to mobile? That's cool.
Yes, that's pretty cool. Yes, that was the last thing I wanted to mention as well. Yes. So starting from task number 4, you'll be start thinking about mobile and responsive devices. So with Chrome, there is a way to emulate different mobile and tablet screens. So if you click on that button, toggle device toolbar, then you can see how your app will look like in different devices. Yeah, so for example, this is how it will look like on an iPhone, and this is how it will look like on an iPad. So for example, in my case on an iPhone, I have one tile, one image in each row, but then on the iPad, I have two, and you can even turn it, right? Landscape, portrait, right? This is a low fidelity emulator, so it doesn't test the hardware, performance, it's just a screen. Hey, but a starting point.
The screen is correct.
The screen is correct, yes, the screen is correct. And also, you can test different resolutions, so you can add your own device here. It's okay, it's a starting point, is pretty cool, right? Any question? No? Richard, any question?
Thanks.
Cool. Yes, so that was it for today. Thank you for watching, guys.